Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. My name is Jason Weiss, and I am the host of the Ask Jason Weiss show. Before we dive into some great topic today, I just want to put the disclaimer out there because you have two attorneys on here. So anything we say is not legal advice. Although we are licensed attorneys, we are not giving you legal advice. No attorney-client privilege has been created. This is 100% educational, informational, and entertaining. If you need legal advice or financial advice, consult an attorney directly. However, now that this disclaimer has been said, if you need career advice and you are in the law field, want to go into the law field, want to leave the law field, and all of that, we are here with DavidJBlock of Hurtner, Block, and Bowser. And David is a legal recruiter. I met David when I had all non-gray hair, and David had, his wonderful hair that he has now. He's good. So we met. David is a legal recruiter. So what is a legal recruiter? A legal recruiter is someone that acts on your behalf or acts on the company's behalf or whatever it is and tries to help you land that job that you want. It could be at a law firm. It could be at a company. It could be at a business. It could be at a developer. It could be anywhere. So a legal recruiter will try to basically be a legal matchmaker. That's a great way of putting it. And we'll talk about who pays the recruiter and all of that. But the one thing that, and I can't stress this enough, the one thing that I want to just make known is David is an attorney. So what does that mean? That means that disclaimer that I gave in the beginning applies to him. And it also means that, he will keep your stuff privileged, confidential, and he cannot go out and say, oh, company A, I'm working with Jason Weiss. He can't do that until he says, hey, Jason, are you interested in a job? I'd like to present you to company A, company B, whatever it is. In addition to being a legal recruiter, David is a proud daddy. He's got teenaged, high school and college age kids. And we're going to talk about how he balances work and being a dad and a husband, of course, but, and a dad to cats and dogs and lizards and all other things. So without any further ado, I want to introduce David. And David, just tell us a little bit about how you started your career, because you did practice law.
Correct.
And when you decided it wasn't right for you or it was time to make a change.
So way back in 1996, first of all, thank you, Jason, for having me on here.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
Second of all, so back in 1996, I was at went to University of Miami Career Planning and Placement Center, and I saw a advertisement, go the U, exactly. I saw an advertisement for a career change and something that's different. I was practicing, and I was practicing with an attorney that I knew from law school. We kind of had a door law, which, anything that came in the door, we were handling. And it just wasn't resonating with me, wasn't something that I was so excited about. So I applied for this position with a company called H. Hurtner and Associates. And I got an interview, and Herb Hurtner was the owner of the company. And we had a great session, but I had some clients at the time that I was working with that I wasn't sure I wanted to give up because I was making decent money from them. They were landlord-tenant clients, actually. And Herb decided to go with another candidate because they were going to be able to devote their full time to legal recruiting. I was going to be able to devote 65% of my time. So about 6 months after I interviewed with Herb, he called me back and said, David, are you still interested? And I said, yes, what happened? And he said the other person who started with him, left. He didn't. The lady that started with him didn't like it, and so he said, "Do you want to come in, and meet other people in the office?" I said, "Sure." Another good interview, and I've been here with Hurtner Block. At the time was H. Hurtner Associates since March of 1997. So almost years.
So a couple of things that hit home here, right? The first thing was you talked about that you didn't have that passion, that love, that desire. For all of the young attorneys, old attorneys, wise attorneys, dumb attorneys, all the attorneys that are out there, and anybody really that's in a job, how important is it that you have passion for what you do?
Yeah, it's really, to me, that's the ultimate of importance, because if you don't have passion for what you do, it's going to be a slog for you, right? Every day is going to be, I got to go in and bill for my client and talk to this jerk or that jerk. And it typically doesn't work out very well for that person because they're not excited about it. I mean, I'm sure you've had many classes or many things that you've enjoyed in your life. Let's say it was a sports and entertainment class that you liked. Well, obviously, if you like it, you're going to be more engaged, first of all. You're going to enjoy it more. You're going to try harder in it, probably, unless you're a person who tries hard in everything. But typically, those were the classes that I did better in, is ones that I was excited about or interested in. And so the same thing applied to me, outside when I was practicing is, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to handle everything coming in the door, create the wheel again on every different lawsuit that comes in that we handled? And the answer was no. And so I was looking for something else at the time, met with Herb, and obviously it didn't work out the first time around, but the second time around, worked out, and had been with Herb now Herb passed away last year. Unfortunately, he was my mentor and a terrific person, and really taught me everything about legal recruiting and fighting for your fees. And don't hurt the little guy. We're the little guy, and law firms are the big boys. And don't hurt us with the fees. We're helping you, right?
Right. Herb Hurtner, for anybody that's listening outside of Florida, was a legend when it came to the recruiting industry. That whenever I would get a phone call and I would say, yeah, I'm working with, DavidJBlock at Hurtner Block or at H. Hurtner and Associates, it would be like, oh, you're working with Herb and David? Never mind. Go do it with them. You're in great hands. All of this kind of stuff. I think part of what I'd like to get at today is, how has look, you can go on Indeed, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on whatever, and you can click easy apply, fast apply, lightning apply, instant apply, or you can fill out the apply thing. But, why should an attorney hire or not hire, work with a recruiter as opposed to, oh, I can do it on my own from LinkedIn?
For a number of different reasons. I'll start with, first of all, if you don't have someone who kind of knows the ins and outs of the industry and knows the terms of art, if you will, for particular positions and understands the positions, if you have someone on your legal recruiting department who may not either be an attorney or may not just know anything about the different areas of practice. For 30 years now, I've been doing this, almost 30 years. So you get a good understanding of what the firms are looking for, the type of personality they're looking for. And if I have someone that I believe in myself, again, this is something that, a passion for someone that you're working with, right? I can go to a client and say, you got to meet this person. And because I've been doing this for so long, it doesn't happen with every recruiter, because not every recruiter has been in the business for so long. But if I say to somebody, I believe in this candidate, they will typically, I'd say, 8 out of 10 times talk to that person.
So, I mean, you're putting your reputation on the line, right? I mean, look, you and I, we've known each other 25-ish years, right? So you could go to a potential recruiter and you could say, look, I've known Jason for 25 years and he's organized and he knows how to think on his feet and he knows how to do this. But then you could also say, oh, but Jason's not a bankruptcy attorney, right? I'm not. I'm working on it, but I'm not currently a bankruptcy attorney. But you would be able to tell that to people. So if they're looking for a bankruptcy attorney, of course, you're not going to submit me. But if it was a litigation, a corporate, a real estate attorney, something in AI, I fit because those are where my practice areas are, and I love it. So for any candidate out there that's working with a recruiter, know that you're a reflection upon that recruiter as well. Because, if you're putting stuff on your resume that's not accurate, because you're using an AI generated resume, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you're hurting not only yourself, but you're also hurting that recruiter. Now, what do you think about, the use of AI for resumes, right? There's programs out there, and I'm not going to promote any, but there's a program out there that you could use, or that you could just go on a ChatGPT, grab the job description, grab your resume and say, get me this job. And it's going to merge it in.
Sure.
Are you finding hiring firms, agencies, businesses, are they able to see past those ChatGPT resumes, or are they just like, oh my God, this guy's great, I got to bring him in?
So I think what happens is initially when you Jason Weiss sends a resume to XYZ firm, they may have the recruiter there who has an AI program to ferret out candidates that fit the mold of what they're looking for in this particular position, whether it's a litigation position or real estate position. They may have parameters that they feed into their AI system to get candidates that fit that mold. So in that way, yes, it's good for the candidate that they might get in front of the person, but then you have no one to showcase you, right? And that's what you're really looking for, someone who has your back to showcase you, or to say, if 1,000 people send in a resume and they get 200 that look good because they fit the parameters of the AI search, how's that recruiter going to be able to find someone out of that 200? They're going to interview all 200. That's going to be a waste of time for them.
Right.
If you're working with a recruiter, and we have these systems that allow us to know what firms are looking, what corporations are looking, actually, both. Obviously, it's a lot of it's, they have their own websites. So some of these new companies, they scrape from the websites and they allow you to know which firms in all of Florida are looking, or at least firms that you're really interested in. If they're top firms or medium firms or smaller firms or intellectual property firms, whatever it may be, we have these tools that we can use to help a candidate like Jason Weiss find a position with a particular firm in a particular geographic area. But just getting back to the AI stuff, they don't know someone's personality. AI can't tell a recruiter, and so a recruiter works with all these different they get a bunch of different resumes, and they have to ferret out the best maybe 3 or 4 candidates from a long laundry list, and it may not even be the right type of person that they're looking for. They may have fed in the wrong information to AI. They may have heard from the partner different information. They're looking for that specific thing on the resume. But when you're going through the recruiter, yes, it's fine, and you may get an interview. But when you're working with a recruiter, we're there to guide you through the interview process, how to handle certain questions. So it's not just you're not on there by yourself. When you're working with a recruiter, you're working with them for them to help you with interview techniques, tips,
and the most important thing that most candidates and law firms, businesses, whoever, most candidates and employers, that tough conversation of compensation, right? Sure. I want 350,000. They only want to pay 300,000. Well, you don't want to start the relationship on a bad foot. So if you have a recruiter who's your intermediary, your advocate, your person, the recruiter can say, look, I know your budget was really 300, but he or she really wants 350. Can we bridge the gap? You're the negotiator. So at the end of the day, you want to get the candidate the best possible result, and you can do that. Now, what does it cost a candidate, right? I come to you and I say, hey, David, I'm looking for a new job. Can you help me? And you look at my background and you say, oh, you would fit in real estate and litigation and AI, and I'm working with 2 law firms and a company, and I think you would be a fit. And then the question becomes, well, what's it going to cost me? And what's your answer?
The great answer is it doesn't cost you anything. We get
come on, it's got to cost me something.
Your time and effort. What I always say to people is, we don't ask you for any compensation. What we ask you for is your honesty. We want you to trust us, and I want to trust you, in that you're not going to go around my back. If you hear about XYZ company that's looking, and they may have something on the internet that you didn't see, and my trust is that you're not going to go around my back, because that's how we get paid by the company or law firm. You're not going to go around my back and apply on your own, and that's dirty pool, right? So,
and the other thing is, there's got to be communication, right? If you're going to say, hey, look, I want to submit you to law firm A and law firm B, and they're like, okay, go do it, but they've already applied to law firm B on their own, that hurts their chances, and that kind of makes you as the recruiter look kind of silly. So, yeah. You have to have that communication. Right, you have to have that communication. You know what? I really like firm A. Please submit me. Firm B, let me check my records. I think I already applied, or I know the managing partner there, or I've already had discussions, or they turned me down in the past. Which, look, especially with LinkedIn and everything that's going on, it's so easy to apply. I guess a second question or a follow-up question is, how long do you wait if you saw something on LinkedIn or you've applied to a job and then you see it reposted? How long should a candidate wait before thinking about reapplying?
So if they're doing it on their own, you mean?
If they're doing it on their own, or do you have parameters where, we sent you over to, Smith firm in the past, but maybe things have changed. Do I have your permission to send you over again?
So typically it's, we have agreements with law firms and corporations. So they give you a specific amount of time, where you're getting credit for a resume. So it might be 6 months, it might be a year. It just depends on your particular agreement with whatever firm or corporation you're working with. And as far as, how long should you wait if you're working on your own, you're working not with a recruiter, but just sending in your resume to a particular company or law firm. It does take a little bit of time for the recruiting department to gather the resumes, because they get a lot of them. If it's a good position, they get a lot of resumes. I'd say 98% of the time or 95% of the time, it's not on point. They're looking for the 2 to 5% that are on point and that would fit with the particular firm. But, they're getting paid for that too. So how long should you wait? I'd say I'd give it anywhere from 4 to 8 days in order to contact them again.
And so, okay, so if you, let's just say 10 days, right, or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You haven't heard anything back in 2 weeks?
1 to 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Okay, so let's just say 2 weeks. And then what? Hit easy apply again, or
Oh no, you don't want to apply.
no, this is if you've been in if you've emailed your stuff over to the internal recruiter to follow up. You're saying wait a week to 10 days. Got it. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. We're going to make all of our listeners wait for 20 to 30 seconds while we jump to a commercial. And then what I want to do is I want to jump into, tips for people that are thinking about, I'm no longer happy in my current position. What do I do? Where do I look? How do I go about things? How do I contact DavidJBlock? Those are all important questions. So we're going to go for a quick 20 to 30-second commercial, thanking our sponsor, and then we're going to be back with the legal recruiter. We are back. I'm Jason Weiss, the host of the Ask Jason Weiss show. And although I am an attorney and DavidJBlock, who's my guest today, is an attorney, neither one of us are giving legal advice. We are just here for entertainment, education, and other great stuff. So nothing we say is attorney-client privileged or legal advice. So before we broke for the quick break, thank you to our sponsors, we were talking about, what do you do? You're an attorney who is, well, let me ask this question. For attorneys that you're working with, David, what is your sweet spot with regard to experience? Do you want that law school right out of, that lawyer right out of law school, or do you want that attorney that's been practicing 30 years and is getting ready to, just have some part-time work? What's your ideal candidate look like these days?
So that's a $64,000 question, as they say. It really depends on what the firm or corporation is looking for, right? So if they're looking for that junior attorney, obviously we'd be looking for someone. When I say junior attorney, it is not somebody just out of school. Typically, that's harder for us to place somebody just out of school unless they've been in a federal clerkship or something like that, where they've interned or clerked with a judge. I'd say the sweet spot is anywhere from like 2 to 7 years, 2 to 8 years.
Okay.
After 8 years, if we're working with someone, let's say with 8 to 15 years experience, the question becomes what?
How much is your book worth, or what is your portable book of business?
What's your portable book of business? That's what we've talked about in the past. Is you're only as good as your book, they say. But
I since the day I met this guy, he's been preaching to me that if you ever want to have success and be able to take it to the next level as a practicing lawyer, you have to develop a book of business. So to all of you young lawyers, to all of you law school students, to all of you college students that want to go to law school, you have to build your book of business. David, explain to them what a book of business is.
So book of business, if you're interested in going from one firm to another, it's not typically one firm to a corporation, because you lose your book of business or you push it to somebody else. So going from one firm to another, that means you have clients that rely on you, right? And let's say those clients in a given year pay
200.
What's that?
200 grand. 200 grand.
Let's say 200,000 to 500,000 in business, and you get that pretty consistently with these 10 different clients each year. Well, when you're interviewing with this other firm, they're going to ask you, do you have a book of business? And you can say yes, and they will say, what's portable of that business? And it may be all 200 to 500 of it. It may be 100 of it, because you've developed that business, but they have a conflict with another firm. So you have to have an understanding with the other firm, and you need to be honest with the other firm. What's your true book of business? What can you take over from your practice to this other law firm?
Yep.
And the way to, if you're a big rainmaker at a firm, typically they're going to keep you over somebody else who may not be a rainmaker. They may be a really, really smart attorney, a service attorney, as that we like to call them, service attorney. But service attorneys don't, the firm will say, you know, what have you done for me lately? This guy brought in $500,000 in business. The service attorney worked on that business, maybe.
Exactly.
So when
they're called, and there's a movie out there by John Grisham and a book called The Rainmaker. It's the person that goes out and gets the business. I came to the law firm because of Jason. I came to the recruiting agency because of David. That's our book of business. And then you know, for me, my assistant who's laying down there, Vader, you know, if he's the one that's doing the work, we would call him the worker bee. That's the person that's filing the pleadings and writing the memos and doing all of this. But if I were to go to a law firm, the first thing the law firm says is, who comes with you and what's that worth? Well, I've done $1 million in business for the past 5 years. I don't see it changing, but let's say 750,000, you know, and you do that, but don't say, oh, I've done $1 million in the past. I think 1.5 million. Okay. You can't do that. You got to be open and honest, because your comp is going to be tied to that.
I was just going to
say, I got $1 million and they come up with a formula and you don't hit the million, you got a problem. If you say I do $1 million and you do 1.25, you're golden. So how I live my life is I will always under promise and over deliver. So if I were bringing $1 million book of business with me, I would say confidently 750,000. And when they look at the numbers at $1 million, I look like a stud.
And not only that, if you do bring in that $1 million, not only are you going to be looked at as a stud, but they're going to understand that you're representing yourself properly. If you go and, like Jason said, if you go interview with a firm and they hire you based on the fact that you say you can bring in $1 million in business and you bring in 300,000, that's not going to make anybody happy, least of all yourself. And maybe it's an aberration, but 2 years in a row, you're probably going to be let go from the firm, or they're going to decrease your compensation dramatically to recover some of the monies that they paid you for not delivering the goods, if you will.
So for college students and law school students that are thinking, I want to go to law school, I want to go practice law, I want to go work at a law firm, and I was very specific at that. I want to go work at a law firm. Is there any advice that you could give those attorneys that are getting ready to start practicing, getting ready to take a bar, getting ready to go to law school, what they should be doing when they're in law school to maybe help position themselves better for when they're competing with every other newly admitted attorney?
Be the top kid in your law school class.
And let's just say you can't, right? I wasn't, you weren't. Most of the attorneys that we know, you know, we're not the top. I did well, you did well, we all did well, but you know, what's something else? If your grades are good, what's something else that could help you stand out?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is who you know and what you know, but if you have the ability early on to generate business, again, I take it back to generating business. If you have or you have, you know, a family member who has a business that could be useful, that always helps when you're trying to get into a law firm. If there's a particular practice area that you want to get into, you know, do an internship somewhere, do a clerking position. Sometimes when you have these clerking positions and you do a great job and they love you, they're going to offer you a full-time position. So, you know, that's one way that I always recommend if you don't have the top grades, do your best to get a really good clerkship or internship, even if it's not paid, with a particular firm, and show them that you can be everything that they're looking for and more. And that's coming up from the bottom, and hopefully you get to the top by being that rainmaker at the particular firm that you started at, right? That's
and when you're there, volunteer to write, volunteer to go to court with the attorney, volunteer to attend hearings, volunteer. Make it known that you want to do that, because look, my first summer I worked for the Department of Justice for the Immigration Court, and I got to sit in on hearings and assist judges in making findings. And I got to write a lot. My writing improved from my first year to my second year tremendously. And then when I went back the second summer, because I was now part of the honors program and actually got paid to be there, my writing got even better. Yeah. So that's one of the big things, right? There was no ChatGPT, there was no Claude, there was none of that. But even now, right, you still, and I was talking with an attorney about this yesterday, you still need to know what questions to put into chat, to put into Claude. You can't just say, hey, draft me a lease between party A and party B. Okay. I represent party B. Okay. And they put a lease together. Well, does it have escalation clauses? Does it have holdover? Does it have that it should be construed fairly against both parties, even though, one party wrote it? Does it have an escape provision? Does it have liquidated damages? If you don't know to ask those questions, then I don't care how good your AI's program is, you're not going to get a good lease. You're not going to get a good document. So the point is, you got to be able to ask, be involved, and do all that. So my question to you, David, is, with the advent of AI, with the advent and the use of Zoom and remote, what do you think we've gotten to a back to office type situation so far? And do you think we're ever going to? And how does that affect, attorneys, that are looking for a job?
When you say back to office, what mean literally going back to the office? Or
so 2019, 2020, everybody worked from their home.
Yeah.
2021, 22, less people work from their home, but it was still the norm. Now we're in 2026. Do you see most people working at home or going in, and how does that affect candidates?
So it's definitely going back the other way now, where more of the law firms and corporations want you in office at least 3 to 4 days a week, at least, because again, if someone's going to invest their time in you to teach you or mentor you to be the type of attorney they're looking for, they want you engaged. Like I said before, we talk about engagement. They want you engaged, and they want you learning from them, and they want you in the office to be able to, handle certain questions that they've handled before in the past. They want to test you and see what if you have the mettle, instead of looking up. Obviously everything can be looked up by AI these days, but sometimes there are mistakes AI every day, and
every day
it can get you in trouble if that's all you're relying on, and that can get a law firm in trouble too if that's all they're relying on, because not all of it, there's made up cases that are just false.
AI hallucinates. That's AI one of the things.
That's right.
Look, the other day I put a generic lease in there, and I asked a question, and it gave me an answer, and it didn't sit right. And I'm like, huh? And I went in and I questioned it, and it's like, you're right. I don't know where I got that from. And it had to do with just a guarantee, right? Who's the guarantor, and does it run at a certain point of time? There's no guarantor in this lease. Huh? I remember reading it. Checked it again. You're right. There's a guarantor in this lease, and it falls off after the second year. No, that's not correct. So you gotta. I look at AI as having an intern, having a clerk, having a law school student, somebody that you can teach, and that's what AI should do. But I guess with when people are applying, and they see the remote, a candidate's probably going to be like, yes, I can work out of my house and I don't have to go anywhere. But there's also a flip side and a negative to that.
For sure.
And go ahead, tell us what the flip side and the negative is.
The negative being, if you want to be, if let's say it's a corporation, if you want to be important within that corporation, you want to be on site. If you're just going to be remote, you're never going to be considered for higher and higher level positions because you don't think you're going to have to move there. They want you to be in the capital city or where the head HQ is. So that's important to them. If you're working at a law firm and they want you to be in office, but they're okay with you being remote, well, who's when things are tough and they're looking for someone who they need to cut. Well, they're not in the office here, and no one's sponsoring them, quote unquote, or have mentored them. They're not going to have a lot of people who are supporting them as much as others will if they're there in person, right?
But if you listen to DavidJBlock and you've developed a book of business and you have business, then they're going to go ahead and let you do. From a candidate's side, when you see remote, yeah, I can work from home and all this and all that. But the competition is now not, let's just say, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My competition is New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. Sure. All of these attorneys that have gone to these phenomenal law schools, not saying UM isn't a phenomenal law school, but I mean, look, Harvard's better than UM. We got to admit that, right? You could have someone who wants to continue to live in Massachusetts get the job, especially if it's an in-house gig, right? Because you could just get certified to practice law for that company. If they want to expand, if they want to, I want somebody with a Massachusetts bar license. Now I got it. Your pool is for the hiring is huge, and you as the candidate, it might be awesome to work from home, but who knows if you're going to get that option because you're going to be competing against the best of the best of the best.
That's very true.
In the world.
And once you get a position, too, let's go back to that a little bit. Once you get a position and you're working at a law firm for a year or two, law firms don't like, and no hiring firm or company likes when you jump around, right? If you're going from firm to company, that's not good business for them because if they're investing in you, they're investing their time and every year on your resume, you're jumping from firm A to firm B to firm C each year or every 2 years. They're going to notice that. And they're like, do we really want to hire this person or do we want to hire this person who has 4 years? Maybe they don't have the stellar law credentials that Mr. Weiss has, but they have the stability. And you want, as a recruiter, as a law firm, and as a corporation, you don't want someone who's a job hopper.
And I can attest to that. My first 10 years of practice, I probably jumped ship 4 or 5 times. And working with a recruiter like David, he was able to explain. One of the times I moved because the firm closed. The managing partner passed away. A second time, it was based on health insurance, right? I needed certain health insurance so that, we could start a family. I mean, that's the truth. So, and a recruiter can explain that. Oh, Jason left this firm because it closed. And then he moved to this firm and he and his wife were trying to have a kid and the fertility wasn't covered. So he found a firm where it was covered and, he has, 2 wonderful kids, as a result.
Wouldn't have changed anything, right, Jason?
What'd you say?
You wouldn't have changed anything.
Exactly. I know. But
you didn't have a recruiter supporting you and
yep.
Letting people know what a great candidate you are, you may not have gotten other opportunities out there.
Yep. And that's why you need an advocate. You need somebody that's there. Now, look, if you're right out of law school and you want to ask David a question or two, I know him. He's the type of guy that would give you the shirt off his back or drive 2 hours to help you change a tire in the rain. But at the same time, he's really looking for that 2 to 5 to 7 year attorney that, has been at the same firm for almost their entire career and might be looking for a change, might be looking for some help, might be looking to take their portable book of business and go somewhere. So you can find David at legalrecruiting.com. Very, very difficult website to think about, legalrecruiting.com. And you can get him at
what I'm in the .com craze. We got that.
Yep. Hey, it's probably worth a fortune. And you could get him at 305-556-8882 and listen to the prompts. And you want to speak to DavidJBlock, make sure to tell him, what'd you say? Extension 1. Make sure to tell him that you saw on the show, and he'll take extra good care of you. Absolutely. So to again, anybody in the legal community that's looking for a job, that wants help, that wants to find out the right way to do it, that is questioning the integrity or doesn't know what kind of recruiter, reach out to DavidJBlock. He's always willing to help. Legalrecruiting.com. You can find him on LinkedIn as well, and you can always call him at 305-556-8882, extension 1. David, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. So excited to have you, and hopefully you can help attorneys fulfill their dream and find their passion.
Thanks again, Jason. Really appreciate being on your show. It's awesome. And Ask Jason Weiss show.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Jay.